Hey, before I kick off the podcast, I just want to shout out Next Door Clothing. Next Door, a clothing brand based out of Bondi in Sydney. They're making really nice jeans and shirts and hats. So go and check out their full range at nextdoorsydney.com. They're also artists, so you can go and check out a range of art. They put on rad parties, and I love what they're doing. So nextdoorsydney.com for the full range. Hey, it's Shan here. This week I speak to former military paratrooper, ex-serviceman, loving father, professional MMA athlete, Mr. Craig Martin. Craig takes us on a journey into his life as a military serviceman. He was deployed to Afghanistan at the age of 20, spent his 21st birthday in a war zone, and tells some intense stories about what it's like to be actually shot at in combat, what it's like to live in a war zone, constantly on alert, wondering if a bomb is going to be aimed in your direction. It's intense. One thing about Craig I noticed immediately, he has this innate sincerity. He's just really sincere in everything he says, and I really enjoyed his company and being around him. I was so intrigued by his story and even excited just about the content that it was producing. I think I had too much coffee before the episode, and I do this weird thing I do sometimes, and I'm trying not to do it, but at times I kept asking too many questions or jumping in and talking over him and not letting him finish stories. And if it bugs you in this episode, hey, look, I'm with you. It was bugging me as I was producing the episode, so I'm sorry. And Craig, if you're listening, I'm sorry too. However, I think the stories are still there. His message is very much still there. He's a rad human. Craig also discusses what it's like to live as a military serviceman and then have to integrate back into civilian life. It's something I've never actually personally considered, but I could see how challenging it would be when you've lived in high alert in quite a regimented environment and then, seeing gnarly shit and then coming back to, safe Western world that we get to live in, this privilege that we get to enjoy, and then having to transition back to that would be, definitely difficult psychologically. Craig's just really raw and open. He's a really intense human as well. Like, he's full on and tough as hell. Talks about how much he loves hard training, the modalities he uses for his mental health, such as cold therapy. He also, discusses his love of MMA and combat sports and controlled violence and how much that means to him. But he also relays some stories about uncontrolled violence, where he's participated in violence, in the streets. It's been a big part of his story as well. And once you get to know him, you may understand why. So hope you enjoy my conversation with Craig. And as always, I'm doing this for the kids. So enjoy. Terrible Happy Talks. Terrible Happy Talks.
Yeah, good to be here, man. Whoa. Dude, I'm pumped.
Go. 3, 2, 1. Alright, let's do this. Yeah, the stigma.
Yeah, but 100%, my bro.
So, man, it's so
You
good
got a good face to look at, bro. You make me happy. So it's
Really?
good. Yeah, 100%, man. I like
Dude.
it. You see a person with a big smile and fucking some life in their eyes, it's good, you know what I mean? You're not a shady motherfucker like
Thank you. So, Mr. Craig Martin, I'm so glad to have you on the show.
No, cheers, Shannon. Appreciate it,
And,
my bro.
our mutual friend, Jarrett Wilbraham, past guest. I talk about Jarrett a fair bit on the podcast. His raw and authentic approach has kind of aroused a lot of discussion amongst my listeners,
Yeah, 100%, man. He's 100% straight up.
Good dude.
Hard hitter, solid shooter. So he, with a story himself, you know what I mean? So shout out to Jarrett for getting me on here anyway.
How did you two come across each other?
So I met him at a place called Warhammer years and years ago in Nowra. There's an old gym, I think it was run by a guy called Troy, sort of a big juiced up fella.
Fighting gym?
A fighting gym.
You might know my cousin.
Fighting gym, but it was just more so a bloke that just sort of had an interest in helping young fellas and sort of get back on their feet. And it was not an established sort of mixed martial arts gym, but with a young talent and guys with troubled backgrounds just sort of want to express.
Do you know my cousin? Nick Martin?
Yeah,
Butcher?
Nick the Butcher.
cousin.
Yeah, so my last name's Martin too. Everyone's like,
I
your
know,
cousins,
I
but
thought-
we.
I thought of that.
So I used to train at Richards as well and train his fighters. So when I was training for my title, I'd be training up here. I'd go down to Nowra and help train out with his fellas down there. And where I met one of my best mates now, Mossy, Michael, the boss Moss, and he's in the Commandos in Sydney now, but he's taken out all the brigade tournaments in terms of the Integrated Combat Club and a fighter himself. So he's done quite well. He's a Nowra boy, a local born and bred, quite a talented young man, and same sort of journey. He joined the army because of me, you know what I mean? So I've had a lot of interest and helped a lot of sort of get into the army.
How old were you when you joined the army?
17. So I joined at 16 and 9 months. I went in there and signed me paperwork. And funny story, I had a bit of a rough upbringing. You know, me and my mum left when I was young and my house burnt down. Always sort of got blamed for the house burning down. And
why?
I don't know why. Just could be dad, just a prick, mate, straight up prick. Okay. Just sort of brutal in terms of like beating us up and sort of fending for herself. Never really had food in the cupboards. Like we'd always be hunting our food. We'd catch snakes, rabbits, goannas, kangaroos. We'd eat everything, but never had any food in the cupboards. Used to take about an hour and a half to get to school, 3 buses each way. And did a lot of hard sort of yakka on the farm. And I had 2 brothers, Greg, my older brother, he's up in Byron, a bit of a surfy sort of hippie dude, and then Dingo, my little brother, was just a hard-hitting tree lopper. So, again, I had both my brothers to rely upon, and that's why I sort of pride myself on my brothers, blood and non-blood. So it's helped a lot. But down that path itself, it sort of led me to where I am now. I was always pretty good at school, wanted to be a vet. And my grades were quite good, you know what I mean? Obviously, having no one there to help me with my homework, I started becoming more interested in seeing how I could get around things and to get away with things pretty much. And I went up here, went to school, had a bit of trouble with the law, not the law, but just school, just punching on and general things and being a country boy. I think I had about 9 fights in about 3 weeks.
Just to clarify, country, so what was the town you grew up in?
Rocky Hall, so Big Jack Mountain Road, Rocky Hall. So I was down in Marimbula, Pambula, and their head towards
because I've got an international audience, it's like the far southeast coast of New South Wales, Australia.
Yeah, pretty much.
Just to put in context.
Yeah, so on the east coast, and then you head out west a little bit towards the Snowies.
Yeah,
and we had a 1,000-acre property out there.
Wow.
And then when the house burnt down, lived in a caravan for about a year, dug a hole for the toilet and all that good sort of stuff, and went to school. And then my dad, he had a timber mill set up in the mountains, and the next door neighbour had a tractor, and he was just mowing his grass or slashing his grass, caught a rock fire, sparked a grass fire, with a rock, burnt the hill down, burnt his timber mill, burnt everything else down, and fucked pretty much most of it. And
that's brutal.
Sort of moved up here, went to join the army. I was like, I seen an ad come up. I was like, I'll go join the army. Anyway, like my grades at this time weren't so good. So I had this older friend. She's like, just change your reports. So I gave myself A's and B's and said, Craig's a very attentive student, always at class on time and all this good stuff. Anyway.
To get in,
they found out about it. And they said, look, you falsified these documents, blah, blah, blah. I went in there, did a verbal and written apology and did what I had to do because I was a bit heartbroken at the time about it. And anyway, so they said what you can do is you can go to uni or TAFE for 3 months and do your maths and English and get your grades better. So I was working at the universities doing groundkeeping and maintenance and that sort of thing. Went to TAFE every afternoon, got my scores back up. Went in, they said to me, look, you'll be going in about 6 weeks. I said, yeah, ripper. Did my fitness test and they rang me the next day and they said, you're going on the Monday. So this was on the Friday, so they didn't even give me much notice and straight down to Kapuka.
Were you stoked?
And, yeah, I was stoked. But originally...
Just before you go any further, can we just go back a little? So, you had a strong desire to get out of school early.
Yeah, pretty much. Just
because you didn't feel like you were functioning well in that space?
I didn't mind it. It's just, again, it wasn't really sort of meeting my needs and sort of like testing me as such, like as most young men could probably
so many young men
imagine. But unless you sort of have a hobby or a desire or something, it can lead to 2 paths. It can lead to a path of success, I believe, and also a path of failure or just that rock bottom. And a lot of people use that boredom and what they're using now along the schools. And, a lot of them are sort of hitting the recreational and, where there's no desire or better to do better for himself, and that's playing sport, hanging out with your mates, talking to chicks or whatever it may be, but at the same time, it was a path in which I thought if I don't make a decision now, I'll end up somewhere else. So again, like with having all these punch-ons on the street, I'd go out being a country boy, like I'd always be polite to everyone, but you'd always be getting picked, whether it be different or you're not wearing the right clothes or...
Did you feel you were subjected to elements of prejudice for being different?
Well, I wouldn't just say different, I just stand on my own 2 feet. So, I'd never really sort of take a backward step in coming forward. I always found myself one of them people that, one good point for my old fella, I guess he sort of embedded into us as a young age, don't pick on those younger, don't pick on those with, disabilities and all these sort of things. So I always pride myself on being a voice and also, a person of presence to sort of stand up for those that are less vulnerable in a bad position. So it's helped a lot to sort of where I am, but also on the offside, it's got me in a lot of trouble too, you know what I mean? And people always say, leave it up to the law enforcement and leave it up to these people. But again, majority, and I can say this from my open heart, like 90% of them, you know what I mean, they can't look after themselves as it is, you know what I mean? Just because you got that badge on or you have a description from your job or a course in which you've done that years ago that you were competent at the time. But if you're proficient or you're not, you know what I mean, you can have on paper like, I was a professional surfer 10 years ago, but if you haven't surfed for 10 years, then you ain't a professional surfer anymore, champion.
Exactly.
Like, you know, it's just something that you've dived into. So again, unless you keep on top of keeping all your things in check, then you're good to go.
Just going back to some of those values that your old man instilled in you, like it said, you know, to be a stand-up guy.
Yeah.
You know, you stand up, you know, you don't back down, you stand up for what you believe, you stand up for vulnerable.
Yeah.
Was respect a big thing too? So once that line of respect was crossed, you said that's when it's sort of like you'd stand up for that, but then it got you in trouble.
Yeah, so like pretty much like obviously I had a lot of trouble when the house burnt down and sort of, again, you know what I mean, being a kid with not much sleep and stuff all food and bits and pieces. Like I think I was 14, I knocked my mum's boyfriend, he was 40, chased us around the house with a big fire poker and tried to fight me and my brothers and that sort of thing. But my old boy, because he was brutal and hard on the hand himself with us, you know, like I remember wagging school once and he said to me, if a teacher tells you to this or whatever, you do that, you know what I mean? So he used to make us piss ourselves, he'd knock us out. Like, he's just a real brutal, hard old person. And that, to me, that's not hard, you know what I mean? He's a little mummy's boy as it is and had his mum and dad living together all their life. So again, like, you know what I mean? You're trying to live your life through your kids, and which is one thing I despise of. So anyone sort of out there listening, you know, anything that you wanted to do in your life, don't push against your kids, you know what I mean? If you don't have the balls or the courage to do it, then don't live your life through someone else's eyes, because I believe that you need to do it yourself in order to grow. Because all you're going to do is get someone to resent you. They're going to grow up eventually. They're going to resent you. They're going to have the experience. And guess what? You're going to have the regret. So pretty much at the end of the day, just,
That's,
you know
that's
what I mean? Like,
powerful what you just said.
Yeah. So
You know that, don't you?
No, cheers, my bro.
Because then that's when the cycle of, I guess, the cycle of violence continues. And I'm not talking about just physical violence. Like I'm talking about emotional violence, verbal violence, because of the dissatisfaction that the adult and the parent puts on their child, their own personal dissatisfaction with themselves because they couldn't achieve.
Yeah.
And they put it on their kid.
Yeah, hard. Well, I stayed with my mum when I was 11. Like for once when she left and that sort of thing. My dad picked me up the next day. Because you ever stay with your mum again, don't come home. So I was like, well, I won't worry about seeing her again. And I haven't seen or spoke to her stuff all since then. So I was like, it's something that sort of didn't really sit well with me at the time, but I had a lot of time for my old boy. I looked up to him and thought, you know what, I'll do whatever you want me to do, Dad. Like, that's what it is. And as a kid, you don't really understand. But now, as a parent, I understand it. And I mean, I look for strength within when I have hard times and battle, like, you know, I mean, a bit of mental and physical pain and that sort of thing. But I look at it like as a blessing in disguise in a way. And it's only until I've had children of my own that it's become a more apparent that I've been able to open up my eyes to all these emotions. So with my children, I sit there and say, like, it's okay to be sad, it's okay to be angry, and I give them, like, everything. Whereas me, if I cried as a kid, like, harden up, like, you'll be all right, mate, give you a pat on the back, like, you know, clip over the ears, like, stop crying, you little girl, like, you know what I mean? It's okay for your children to let them be children. And again, you know what I mean, for all the listeners out there, if you trouble and you battle with, like, you know what I mean, being a parent and these challenges and stresses that life throws your way, like, I find having cold showers sort of gets me going. So, like, if I get angry, I used to, like, think I'll pump some push-ups or I'll do something, but that just raises your blood and gets your core temperature, gets you a bit more heated. So I'll just go jump in a cold shower, come out and go, you know what, my boys are just being boys. Just relax, like you're going to overreact for no reason, you know what I mean, other than your own little devil on your shoulder saying, you know, like...
So cold therapy has been a big one for you in terms of managing emotion.
Yeah, pretty much, man. So what happened is I met this young girl. She's like sort of a surfy girl from Bondi. She was an OT, had a bit of a mullet, bit of a tomboy, real cool sort of girl. She's seen on my list that I enjoyed my fighting. She's like, oh, I want to get into fighting, but I don't have any aggression. And I said, well, that's good. You don't need aggression, you know what I mean? Like, control, it's great. I said, but why are you so happy? What's your trick? She's like, I have these cold showers. Anyway, just the vibe and the aura that she put off, I like that about this person. So if I can take something away from everyone, and I hope someone can take something away from this today, that having that exposure with herself, I go, you know what, I like that. I like that quality and just the vibe that I had there sitting in her presence. So I just started banging these cold showers. And ever since then, I feel really good, you know what I mean?
So
And
she got you onto it?
Yeah, she got me onto it.
Because she was just mellow.
Yeah, just mellow, just a young, just sort of mellow, sort of like tomboy, like more like, just each to their own. She was who she was, and that's her path. But I like that quality of her, you know what I mean? So I took that.
It's funny what you say about fight training. You're like, yeah, do you need aggression for fight training? I think you need it in an actual fight.
Yeah.
But do you need aggression for fight training? Because, like, I know when I fight train or even spar,
Yeah.
I actually don't feel aggressive. I feel like I need energy.
Yeah, but the problem with aggression, and Joe Lopez hit this really well. He used to say to me as a young kid when I was always angry, and all these other trainers I had, like, just because you get hit once, you don't need to hit back 10 times. Like, yin and yang. You can be hard on the inside and soft on the outside, and vice versa. And Joe said this quite well. He, he's really good in tune with that. But if you get tunnel vision on something, in the periphery, you don't understand or see what's going on. And that's why Volko does so well. He's got controlled aggression, and uses it when he needs it. And at the same time, like, you watch him train, he's always smiling, but focused, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, like, being troubled, I'm like, bang, 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 like, like running around, my head's going 100 miles an hour. I'm thinking while I'm training, I've got to do this, this, and this. I've got to do this for work. I'm not really focused on the moment, and I'm not in the moment, Shannon. So it is one of those things that, again, and this is where all these other professions come in place that we weren't aware of back then, but now they become more apparent. And your meditation, your yoga, and calming, and your visualization, and all those things are really important. You know what I mean? If you can have 5 minutes out before training, just to set your head, reset, relax. And put your head on target to where you need to be, so you're programmed in that prime position for what you're about to achieve. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
So good. So, you got into the military early. You left school.
Yeah.
And they sent you down to where? Kapuka.
Yeah, so to Kapuka. So originally, and again, anyone that wants to sort of join the army, just make sure you do your research and have a look out there, because recruitment sometimes is just based on numbers and trying to get people in, and it's all commission and whatnot, but there's not, there are very few people that want to invest time into you and say, hey, this is the right path. A lot of the time they just say, well, look, we need to fill X, Y, and Z, all these positions essentially. And for myself, they go, there's no infantry positions. I wanted just to be a soldier, and no disrespect to the other corps, but I didn't want to do something in the military that I could do outside of the army. So I just wanted to be a soldier and understand that whole element and to do better for myself and my country. So I joined, and they said, you can do artillery because there's no positions. Anyway, so I get down to Kapuka, my boss is infantry. He goes, look, mate, he goes, you wanted to go infantry? I said, yeah, I did, as a matter of fact. So he put my paperwork in for me. I left Kapuka, I went to School of Artillery for the first week, and I was like, how good is this? You rock up, you do your first parade, then you
What's
go do
a parade for those that don't know?
So you just come out, you do a roll call pretty much just to make sure everyone's there.
Yep.
You dress to the day, give you instruction for what's going on. You'll go do your PT, come back and you have PT with your physical training. Come back, have your brekkie, do a bit of instructional, have your lunch, do a bit of, again, a bit of structural, some practical, and then sort of knock off. I was there for the first week. I was like, this is all right. How cruisy is this? Anyway, so then my corps transfer come through for infantry. Get on a plane, go straight up to Singo, and then all of a sudden get there and you're out of bed at 5 in the morning, then you work until 10 at night, you got your sheets over your shoulder, you're running around. Your weekdays and your weekends, there's no difference. It's one big day, and all of a sudden you're just getting yelled and screamed at, and you think, wow, like 90% of the army have no clue what the real army's about. Like, they go straight from Kapuka, and that's the hardest thing they'll do. And it's false perception, because they say you're a soldier now, and they all believe it, and they're not. They can't shoot, they can't fight, they can't do a lot of things, and it's not their fault. That's just the path they've decided to take. Yeah. Now, as infantry, you're thrown straight in the deep end, and a lot of other combat corps are the same. Anyway, I was out on Anzac Day up there, and there was this guy called Jesse McNeil. He's one of my mates. Big boy, about 6'4". He was 25 at the time. So I was 17. We were just out on Anzac Day. We're not meant to be at the pub having a drink anyway. And he was copping off, so I went and waited out the front with him. He started turning on me.
So wait up, copping off, let's...
Oh, gobbing off. So he just
gobbing off. Okay, so talking shit.
Yeah,
okay,
talking
gotcha.
shit. And in Singleton, they're quite brutal in their approach, so I'll come forward and I just want to punch on with you. So I was like, I'll go wait with him in the car park so he doesn't get belted.
So wait up, so you've been in the military, this is in your first, month or two in the military?
This is about 3 months deep.
3 months deep in.
Yeah, 3 months deep in. So anyway, he hit me in the car park. I was like, don't hit me again. He hit me again.
So you had a few drinks on Anzac Day?
Nah, so I didn't have any. So I was 7 at the time. We were all at the pub. We weren't meant to be drinking anyway.
Yeah.
He was just gobbing off.
Okay, and what? And he
got kicked out of the pub. So because he got kicked out and I was only 17, I was like, I'm not meant to be in anyway.
Yeah,
I'll go
you were
wait
left with him. Yeah.
And then he ended up turning around and hit me. I was like, don't hit me again. He hit me again. I ended up knocking him out and broken his cheek and everything else. And obviously the ambulance come and took him away. I propped him up against the bin and sat him there and waited with him. But the MPs come and got me. and then took me back to base.
Military police.
Military police. So they're going to charge me and everything else. And that sort of affected a little bit of my career early on. So I left Singleton getting best physical training because I did quite well. And as a young fellow, I was like, this is rewarding. I was there to have best soldier award too. And I was like, for a 17-year-old, like, I like this, you know what I mean? Having been the youngest in my platoon and having the exposure and life experience and sort of succeeding in a place where I thought I was doing well. And then obviously another discrepancy in terms of, punching on. And that's sort of pretty much the core of my life. Every time something's sort of gone wrong or we resolve anything, I'm a big believer in violence solves violence and, but not for the wrong people. And, it's just, when I say violence solves violence, like, I don't mean going out there looking for it, but, majority of the time.
So when you say violence, so you're doing really well on the job.
Yeah.
And what was the job doing for you? Like, why did you feel so excited about the job? What was it filling in you as a person?
Yeah, so pretty much I wasn't getting belted, so that was a big thing.
So you felt safe when you're on the job?
Yeah, pretty much I was getting fed, which I never had. I had like fresh clothes, I had like a bed, I had like food, like, just the basic qualities of life that, that are luxury for some people. And, you look at the world these days and people would just be cheering to have a fresh set of clothes on the back, you know what I mean? So, again, that sort of gave me direction and made me feel comfortable and I was happy within my element. And again, being around people, I guess it probably sidetracked your mind and kept you numb to feeling your thoughts of childhood and whatnot, but it gave you direction in life.
You felt that?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. And do you think you were carrying some pain from your childhood and didn't know it?
There could be a possibility, 100%. But also that pain, I used it in a positive way.
On the job? Yeah, it's a good outlet for it.
Yeah, the aggression side and the training, and I probably guess that's where it led me to today and why I'm so broken, you know what I mean? I always pride myself on just continually going and not really showing that emotion, which has kind of affected me because being in a unit with blokes only, as a young guy, there's so much stigma behind putting your hand up saying, look, I'm busted, even if you're sore, but this is where people get it wrong. A lot of people don't understand the difference between pain and injury. You know what I mean? Like pain, there's a bit of soreness, but injury prevents you from doing something. So, a lot of people go, I've got a sore leg. It's like, mate, you just got kicked in the leg last night. It's just a cork. It's not broken. If your femur was busted, he'd be poking out your leg, you know what I mean? Like you wouldn't be walking. So there's, again, like, you got to understand the difference and you go, okay, well, am I hungry? Am I tired? Like, am I emotional? Am I stressed? You know what I mean? Like, there's 5 things that sort of define us, and you've probably heard of that HATES acronym. So it's
Tell me.
You're hungry, you're angry, you're tired, you're emotional, stressed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So all those things make up our character and how you feel. And in the military, you're always at least one, two, if not all of them. You know what I mean?
I love that. I was told that once. Like what I heard is called the HALTS, HALTS. Like never make a decision. And consider the halts before you make a decision. Like, are you hungry, angry, lonely, tired, or sick? Should make a decision if you've got one of those or all of those. Too many of those.
Yeah, hard. And I guess lonely. That's interesting that you brought that up, Shannon, because lonely is a big thing, and that's obviously where we find ourselves. And there's not enough energy harnessed into loneliness in terms of like education and for those to understand within themselves how they should be feeling it, and it's okay to not be okay as such. You know what I mean? So you might be sitting out there on picket, or you might be overseas. You had a long day, and you just start thinking because that's just what happens. You know what I mean? But you might think, what's going on back at home? Like, if your relationship or your family or whatever it may be is not sitting right before you go away. And I say to everyone, always make peace within yourself, but always apologise. Even if it sucks and it hurts to do so, always do it before you go away or do something, because it's going to make you feel better, because we're all going to be humbled at some point in our life. And when we are humbled, we start to reflect and regret and go, you know what? Man, why did I do that? Like I should have just done that. And that plays a big part in your mind. But if you can eliminate those little 1%ers, then you can clear up that stress in your head and focus on the job and what the task ahead.
So like you will admit if you made a mistake and say sorry when like that's a big thing for you?
Yeah, pretty much, man. So like before it wasn't, because I was such stubborn and that sort of thing, you know what I mean? But in order to make peace within yourself, I honestly find it's better to do this, you know what I mean? I had a good friend of mine, Drury, we spoke about him before. He's like real sort of into his yoga and taking a different path in life, and he's big on that whole, you know what I mean, sort of apologising and making peace within yourself and bits and pieces. It's okay to forgive yourself and sort of making amends, and letting it go, man, because at the end of the day, that's all it is letting it go, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've seen an interesting thing, you've probably seen it on Instagram with that Tommy Hardy or whatever, and there's a boy in the river and he's got his foot stuck in the grate and the water starts rising and the boy drowns. And he goes, but that wouldn't happen to you, Tommy. And he goes, why? And he goes, you would have cut the fucking thing off. He goes, see, in order in life to grow, sometimes you've got to cut a little bit of piece of yourself off to grow, you know what I mean? So you survive from it, but it might hurt in the meantime, but you're going to survive and it's going to leave a scar and you can carry on with that. But the beauty of it, I believe, Shannon, is one day you can look to your son, daughter, or someone that might be in struggle, put your hand on their shoulder and say, look, I understand and I know how you feel because of this. And you can help them through it, you know what I mean? And
it's funny you mention that because I've been doing a fair bit of jiu-jitsu lately. And, I mean, jiu-jitsu is just like, you have like what I call ego deaths.
Yeah.
Whenever you do jiu-jitsu, especially like I'm low level. I always do no gi jiu-jitsu. But, when I first started out, I was at that mindset of like, if I'm getting choked, I'm not fucking tapping out. My ego was like, don't tap out, fucking don't tap out, fucking nap before you tap. And it was getting me nowhere. I potentially could have fucking been put to sleep numerous times in one session. But then as time gone on, I realised that's just the ego driving it. And when I realised that when I'm in a compromising position that I know that I can't get out of, like I'm going to tap, and I used to think that was weakness, but I actually see it as being, like this reduction in ego and kind of admitting, well, okay, doesn't mean I'm giving up. I'm just I'm losing that battle. Doesn't mean I'm losing the war. Sort of thing.
No, that makes sense. In the army, these are sayings when you're doing PT, like pain is weakness, leaving the body. And it's like, shut up, mate. Like at the end of the day, you've got to understand your body. And like you said, like I'm one of those guys and I'll admit that firsthand. And Joe was the same, like I used to pride myself on not tapping, but don't get me anywhere. Like if you don't show up the next day, then what good are you? You know what I mean? And this is another thing in the military and with rank and those sorts of things, because a lot of guys will have rank at the top end. They all of a sudden think automatically they're good to go. Now, I'd rather have a boss with a half-assed plan that can match your energy and meet you on target for the time of target to deliver his plans, as opposed to that boss has got the most guru plan but can't even run a K. And, you leave him behind 20 and he's 20 minutes, half an hour late. And it's like, mate, you can't even keep up with your crew regardless of how good your plan is. So you need to maintain and be there, you know what I mean? So
you can relate to that? Like,
100%.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a scenario. Like I'll do my reconnaissance course and there's 15 of us on the course and I've just taken a couple of guys off the course and lucky enough I got picked up at the end with another fella called Scotty Evernet. And we were doing quite well and we were running around doing our thing, and the final phase was like the range phase. Anyway, the boss that we had at the time was the LT, and he was a student on course, but he was already getting taken down to recon platoon anyway. And he was pretty much setting up the whole scenario. We're doing live shooting X. We're going down doing dart mech sneaker lane. So you pretty much walk down this range and then these little dart mechs pop up and you shoot them. Anyway, he sent the QE out. And the QE is just the guy that delivers your weapons and everything else and signs out all your night vision and pretty much all your essential equipment that you need at controlled stores from the unit. Now, he said, yep, okay, this Q staff member, he's a shirt-wearing member of the platoon. Now, we're all there smashing ourselves, getting woken up, running around, doing hard, arduous tasking just to even get on this course, you know what I mean? You've got to be physically fit. Your reconnaissance and snipers, your fittest guys in the units, you know what I mean? They're sitting down there smashing it.
So just because the terminology is foreign to some people, and I want to just make sure people understand because I don't want it to be lost, reconnaissance means...
Yeah, so you pretty much just the eyes and the ears of the unit. So you might have a big, large infantry unit and you might have a small element of your recon and your sniper patrols. And
so you become an elite unit within that?
Yeah, so it's a specialty.
And that you were training to be part of that?
Yeah, so it's a specialty role within your unit. And what happens is you go out, instead of making a big ruckus out the bush, just send a couple of his out and you sort of get a good layout of the land, come back and give your plans to the boss and he can formulate his plans based on your evidence, photography, mind and visual and physical and everything else that you've done along the way. And he pretty much relies on you guys to give him a layout of the land. This stage you've got drones, you've got a lot of other equipment, but again, the whole thing's not to be seen. It's all the eyes and the ears. So it's good. Like I enjoyed it. I loved being in recon. It was probably the best time of my career. Now, this boss that we had, he sent the guy, the Q store member out to go start digging in the dart mechs, but then sent the first guy to start doing his scenarios. So he's gone down, started shooting down the range. And then this Q staff member's jumped down and hid behind one of the dart mechs. Anyway, this guy's come out in between different scenarios and he's come out and he's shaking. And the boss is like, where were you? And he's like, I was just out there. I just had to hide behind one of the targets. And now, and then the OC and the RSMs come out, and the bosses said, you guys are gonna fry for this. You know what I mean? He goes, you guys have got to like keep it quiet. We're all gonna burn for this. And we're thinking, mate, we ain't gonna burn for this. Like, you're the one that's sitting out there sending this guy down. He had no idea. At the end of the day, we're still under your control, and you're the OIC of the practice. You know what I mean? So he's setting us out there. Old mate's like got shot up. He's hid down behind his target. And come out shaking. Anyway, it come out a few weeks later, and all this sort of thing happened. Now, there was a bit of a cult between this the CO of the unit and the LT at the time, and they sent an email, and it got spread through the whole unit. Anyway, he got stood down for a little bit. I was just seen on the news the other week, and now he's a CO of another unit. And I was thinking, wow, so at the top end, there's always ways around. You know what I mean? Like, that would have been enough for anyone to sort of fry. You know what I mean? Like, it's just chaotic, but. It's funny. But anyway, so I left this unit.
Okay, keep going.
And I'll go down and I'll start going to Holsworthy to become a paratrooper, and I'll go down and do my basic.
Yeah, just to get back to the chronology of it. So, like I said, you mentioned that you were 3 months in. You said you had an incident in the car park where there was a violence. You got investigated for that by the military police. Can we just go from there again?
Yeah, man. So pretty much they just come through and just wanted to secret events in what sort of
in terms of your career,
sort of thing, and everything else. Now, again, like that sort of all got not swept under the rug, but it was still listed on my file as such.
Okay, but it didn't compromise your job.
No, it didn't compromise my job. And again, like at the time, I didn't really understand and. Now I sort of understand, like, at Kapuka, they go, you got 15 minutes to shower, get dressed, make your bed and all this stuff, and you got guys in your face, and you think these guys are war heroes. Like, as a young guy, impressionable guy, it never scared me because I'm like, these guys are only yelling, they're not going to hit me. I couldn't care, when they don't scare me, they're not my dad. Anyway, you sort of leave your career and go, hang on, that guy was a truck driver or he was a queue staff, like you never know war experience, and you're thinking this guy was bossing around like he was the man, and you sort of find them humble guys and you go, I like that approach, I like how he is, and you see his story and he's actually got a story, and now you sort of go to Singleton, you do your IETs for becoming a soldier, and it sort of come more apparent to me. I had this corporal, and he goes to me the night before we do a hardcore, like this exercise, he's like, whatever you do, mate, he goes, can you make sure I get through it tomorrow? And I was thinking, is he trying to instill some confidence in me or whatever, But anyway, the next day we do all our stomping and we do our obstacle course and bayonet assault and that. But he couldn't get over the traverse ropes, so we failed that component because you got to get all team members across. So we had to come back on the Saturday and just do that component again. And then I realised when I got the best at physical training and everything else, I realised it wasn't about me because I was performing well. It was about where he was sitting and what he was doing, and it was about getting him through. So then this sort of led into my career where it sort of gave me a perception of people in general. And you would find the same people day in, day out, not wanting to train, not wanting to do things, sort of hiding themselves away. Could have been a bit of mental side going on there, possibly. But again, and then a trip would come up, and all of a sudden these guys that won't want to train or anything, they'd be out there and they'd be front runners for going on a trip, and it just sort of like really makes you dirty. So I went to Holsworthy. Yep. Went down to my basic parachute course. We were about 2 jumps deep, and then we got called up within 24 hours. We were straight to Timor. Then we went to East Timor. So you became a paratrooper there? Yeah, so pretty much you got to finish your course on paper. So a lot of people might be a rigger and they pack parachutes and they go and say, I'm a paratrooper because they've done a course. It's like, you're not a paratrooper, mate. You've done a couple of little jumps. Like, in order to be a paratrooper, you jump and you've been a soldier, you're covering all elements of being a soldier. Gotcha. Basic level pretty much. Anyway, so we went to Timor, did a couple. We said, about 2 weeks. We're there for about 5.5 months. Then we come back and we had to redo this course all over again because we only done the first 2 jumps, and you got to do a couple of jumps plus your night jumps and bits and pieces and some water jumps at the end. Anyway, because we didn't get to finish or complete that whole course, we had to restart it and come back and finish it off. So we've done that, and that was good. And then from there you start growing and you do your courses and bits and pieces. But when I first got to the unit, and a good friend of mine, Bjorn, which I'll sort of speak about later, he owns that Criminal Muscle, and he was the first guy that I sort of met at the unit, and we did this close quarter fighting course, and that'd go for like 16 hours a day, and you cover off unarmed combative training, and you'd punch on, you'd do all sorts of things, and at the end you'd run these scenario training. It was well run, and it was quite brutal. It was choice, you know what I mean? They changed because it got a little bit soft and touchy-feely in the end. But Bjorn, this guy, he's older, he's like, come on, little fella, team up with you. Now I had a boxing background. I was like, yeah, sweet, like, let's go. And I was like, you ready? And he's like, yeah, and he had his arms open wide. I'm thinking, I don't know what kind of ready that is, but anyway. Anyway, he started smacking on that, bang, cracked him and broke his nose. He's like, oh, you broke me nose. And ever since then, we've become real good mates, you know. And he's got a story of his own, Bjorn, and beautiful man. I've been best man at his wedding and been one of my longest, bestest friends, you know what I mean? And created our own path. And again, another person, which I love to death. I mean, I've got a lot of time for, and it just shows the purity in a person and the ability in which you can control yourself in order to grow and make changes in your life. You can talk about a guy that was in the military, that joined bike clubs, that been in and out of jail, and now is clean of everything. Doesn't drink, don't take drugs, no gang relation, no jail, and you know what I mean, and wanting to do better. And he's been clean himself, no recorded convictions for the last 10 years, and you know what I mean.
So still in the military, or
nah? So he got booted out for reasons that I'm not going to discuss. But at the same time, he again.
But he's now out leading a clean life.
Leading a clean life, yeah. And then, and I used to say to him, I said, bro, and anyone else listening, you know what I mean? Like, I class myself as like a man that can stand his own 2 feet. I love riding, I love punching on, you know, in a controlled environment and everything else. But, if you're sort of feeling down in life and feeling like you don't fit, the best way to fit in is just to look at yourself, get a mirror and look in that bad boy.
Get honest.
Get honest with yourself before anything else, but don't go joining clubs and even all this other crap to make yourself gangs and whatnot. At the end of the day, and I say this to everyone, and you can take it how you want, but be careful who you gob off to, be careful how you carry yourself, and at the end of the day, have a look who's in your bed when you go to sleep. It might just be yourself. If you're lucky, like me, you might have 2 or 3 people in there, but who knows? But maybe not. But anyway, so you got you got yourself, your mate there, you got no one there with you. So the thing is, and what I say is, you be humble within yourself, because you never know who's going to bash through your door if you're carrying on, or you never know what's going to go on. So you have to live with yourself. And now, if you can't do that, you know what I mean, and you're impressionable by joining the club because you want that security. If you want that feeling, go to a mixed martial arts gym. It's exactly the same, but different. You know what I mean?
Do you think men need violence?
Well, controlled, 100%, because we are masculine, you know what I mean, force amongst ourselves, and I believe that's where we're sort of getting off track. But if the country goes to war tomorrow, we need people like us to help, you know what I mean? There still needs to be that element there, you know what I mean? Like, you look at all these men and women doing good jobs around the world, they have to be violent in their way of pursuit in terms of getting their mission done. And if they don't, you know what I mean? Like, it's okay to be emotional, like I mentioned before, and it's okay to have feelings. Yeah. But when a job's a job, like, you look sort of off task. But you look at a vet, they love animals, but sometimes they've got to be nasty and gruely in order to heal that animal or do something. So they just got to put everything aside and focus on that task. And the same sort of thing with the fighters and that sort of thing, you know what I mean? They've got to punch on with each other, and you got to spar with your mate and hit him in the head. You don't like that, but it's your mate, you know what I mean? But in order to grow and to get where you need to be, sometimes you just have to bite down and have a crack, you know what I mean? So in terms of being violent, I think it's a touchy subject, because violence, I don't condone going around being a hero and wanting to king hit people and carrying on. Like, that's not the violence I'm talking about. Like you said before, Shannon, controlled violence.
Controlled violence. And compassion. I call it compassion. Like, I was talking to a guest yesterday. He's also a psychologist. He's a blue belt jiu-jitsu, for a psych guy, and he calls it compassionate violence. Yeah. And he's an advocate for it. It's an outlet. Yeah. But it's this suppression of our primal instincts that's actually getting us in trouble. Suppression's the problem, not the violence. Yeah,
100%. Yeah. And that's the thing you'll find. Like, I've always found this, like, you get guys gobbling off in town and wanting to punch. And I was like, mate, save your energy. Terrible. You know they don't train. You know they don't fight. You know they got buckleys, because any bloke like us that wants to train, that does invest their time in doing better and personal development, you don't have the energy to go out and want to do that for starters, So you're like,
that's so funny.
What's the point?
That's what Jamie Malarkey. I had Jamie Malarkey on here. Do you know Jamie?
Yeah, I don't know him personally, but I've seen him.
He's just the best dude. He's like you, lovely guy. And I said that to him. I said, you get in many street fights and stuff. He's like, nah. He goes, because I was always too fucked up from training. I don't just train so hard. I was always just too tired. I didn't want any trouble anywhere. Yeah, hard. But I mean, obviously he could handle himself better than anyone.
So I'm both different, man. I've had over 100 street fights in my life. Easy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you've mentioned that a few times today. And, I wouldn't mind tapping into, I think I understand why. Yeah. But where I'm curious with you is, I think you're a smart man. Yeah. And I'm sure that you learnt early on that it wasn't serving you getting involved in these situations.
Yeah, pretty much.
But, in your opinion, though, like, why do you think it just continued, even though you'd learnt the lesson that, it's not
so
good?
like, I mean, it's quite a hard one, and a lot of my mates will agree with me. Like, I get along with everyone. I'm the nicest bloke,
tell.
and I'll open the door for you, I'll buy you a drink, I'll give you a shove my back, like, do you know what I mean? But I just don't condone arrogance, and it's cool. Like,
Okay.
I don't like people getting into my personal space, or like if I see someone sort of in harm's way, like I always feel like it's my duty to sort of help. You know what I mean?
It's just like it's just in you.
And my size, like I'm not a big bloke, but because I'm covered in tattoos, everyone always wants to pick me. You know what I mean? Like
You've
my
found
little
that,
brother did
really?
a bit of time, and he was about to get locked up again, and we're sitting there at the pub, and there's a guy pointing through the window wanting to fight him, and I was just like, I'll give him the finger, like, piss off, mate. So he wants me to come out, so I come out and I flog him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I'm like, mate, what are you doing? Like, and I don't like. He's like, and then he goes, he didn't know I was in the military. I'll never say that. And he's like, you're fucked. I'm in the Navy. I was like, whatever. And that even makes more sense now. Like, piss off, mate. You know what I mean? And the same thing. We were down in Nowra jumping, and we had a couple of hours to kill, and we're going to go do night jumps that night. So I went to the pub, got a feed, and got jumped by these dudes at Sanctuary Point Country Club, boat me cheekbone, me teeth.
God,
I ended
dude.
up belting one of them, had his eye gouging, but I got chaired over the back of the head and everything, and just brutal, you know what I mean? But
See, that's traumatic, man.
yeah, 100%, bro. Like, and these guys were drugged up, they were drunk, and I was clean, so I was happy. Like, I was training for a fight at the time, I felt really good. But and it was quite hard because, like, I'll be driving, say, an hour and a half, go to work, I'd jump out of planes all day, pumping adrenaline. And I was fighting professionally for Joe.
Yeah.
And, like, I never had dudes at my own weight. I never fought a dude at my own weight. Like,
You mentioned
everyone,
that.
Like, I'll be jump on a scale 72, 73 in all my clothes, bro. And I'd be like...
So you'd fight
fighting
like
at 70.
featherweight?
Nah, I'd be fighting at welterweight, bro. Like, and I'm only like 72, 73. And I fought this one guy, beautiful man, Mikey Vatui. Check him out. He's a champion. He's up in UE, and he's got a story himself too, you know what I mean, of redemption pretty much. But I fought him in Melbourne in the boxing on AFC, and he'd come in about 90-odd kilos. And I was like, what the hell? So they gave me his fight money, and at the end, I won. So I said, just give him back his fight money. He's got kids. I don't want his money. I just want the acknowledgement that, you know what I mean? Because they said catch weight 75. I was like, mate, I weighed 75. He weighed 96, you know what I mean? That's not catch weight. Like, anyway, but I was going to fight him anyway. But on the way down there, my missus broke up with me at that time. My car blew up like a couple of hundred Ks before Melbourne. So one of my other mates took me down there. And being in the army was hard trying to fight at a professional level because even when I had a title fight, I had to go away 3 weeks before I had my title fight. And it was hard because you don't get anywhere. But in the long run, I ended up having 10 fights with Joe, and I won 9 of them, lost one on points to a guy that was already a middleweight, and he was a professional fighter, an amateur show. So I'd be interested to sort of see where I go with having a full fight camp, having some nutrition, having some sleep, and not having the stress or burden from work, you know what I mean? And they...
that's what a lot of people don't consider. Like, a lot of these guys are, you're working a full-time job.
Yeah.
And just, like, work all day. Then go and, like, just, like, train your guts out in the afternoon and evening.
Yeah, and then you've got to train at work too. So it doesn't matter what your session in the afternoon, at work is compulsory. You've got to do PT. You might have structure PT. You might have individual PT or whatever it may be, but you're out there banging, you know what I mean? So you're it's good, you know what I mean, to build up a bit of that mental resilience and whatnot. But again, over time, you start to get broken down. Like like I said, I've had 14 surgeries from jumping out of planes. I've had over 1,000 jumps out of the plane. Like I've done a couple of trips overseas between Timor, Afghanistan. I've been to South Africa. Like I've done a lot in my time and put my body through a grueling process, and to the point where I've had 14 surgeries. And at the end of my career, like being a soldier, I was like, I need a break, because they weren't acknowledging that I was broken, you know. So I went and done a physical training instructor's course for 6 months just to have a bit of a break. And I get down there and I was like, I don't really like this, you know what I mean? I want to go back to being a soldier. But when I did, they said, I was being red flagged. I was J42. Now, J42 means you're medically downgraded. So for 5 years, I posted 3 more times I was medically downgraded. I should have been booted out a long time before, but because you see the doctors, like, can you do a push-up? Yeah. Do a squat? Yeah. Like, because I'm like, go. I want to do stuff, you know what I mean? They just keep you on paper. So it's sort of hard. And then, you get other people that sort of leave and they get done for drugs.
Because like, even though you were injured, you have this sort of like mental strength to push through that pain, and then all of a sudden you pass the test. And that sort of comes
back to being
they're
a
like,
child.
He's all right. Yeah, but if you had went into it with like just a more of a give up attitude, you know.
100%. And I'm sort of not blowing my own whistle here, but I pride myself on having a go. And the thing is, You know, like I said, a doctor, he'd laugh. He's such a good dude. He's like, you're one of the only guys that come and go, no, I'm good, that you should be told to slow down. And he goes, do you need time off? I'm like, no, I'm all right, mate. Look, there's other people come and go, I need 2 weeks, doc. I need this. It's like just milking the system. And you get a lot of milk in the system. And, you know, there was PTIs that got done for drugs and taking steroids. They all got booted out, but they all get big payouts and they're living life. And it's like, I left the military, and I think we touched on this before, but like, you know, with all these surgeries and everything else, and had no support. So I was on all the medication. They gave me PTSD, alcohol use disorder, gambling addiction. Give me a payout. I blew most of it on drugs and pokies and doing things I shouldn't have, ruined my relationship and my children and everything else. And because I didn't have that support network. So again, like, if you are struggling out there, you know what I mean, and the stigma behind reaching out, like, there is no stigma. The only person you're doing damage to is yourself, you know what I mean? So grab a mate. You know what I mean, walk yourself into somewhere. Even drive 2 hours away if you don't want it in your local, you know, place where you live and you don't want people to find out. Like, there's avenues and there's places that you can help.
Do you think that desire to engage in gambling and sort of numbing behavior, because like gambling's like a numbing behavior because it gets you out of yourself for that time you're gambling. You're not thinking about yourself or your problems or the things you're worried about. You know, gambling, you said maybe a little bit of what other stuff.
Yeah, so that's...
you don't need to go into it.
No, that's all right,
But
man.
do you think, like, that was your way of trying to self-medicate?
Yeah, so pretty much. So like, you join the military in a unit with blokes only. You drink for success. You drink for failure. You drink for like people dying. You drink for a celebration.
Yeah.
Everything, regardless of whatever, is drinking. You know, I mean, it's a massive culture for drinking in defence. And the thing is, you leave, and I had the highest dose of all these medications, and I went in 6 weeks to go on medication to go see a doctor. 5 doctors turned me away because of COVID. They said, we're not taking new clients. You need a Medicare card. I said, I don't have a Medicare. I've never been to Centrelink in my life. So go get one. I said, but I don't have a GP. I had one in the military, but we get free medical. So I ring defence doctors. They can't help me. I'm not in defence anymore. I ring the defence psych. You need a referral, but we can't see anymore because you're not in defence. So that's when I had to quit them medications cold turkey. And I was on the maximum dose of them all. You know what I mean?
To manage the pain of your injuries.
Yeah, no, like that, and the sleep, and trying to help with everything else. And
they were prescribed to you in the military?
Yeah, they were prescribed to me in the military, so I just needed the prescription.
And do you think that sparked some addiction?
Yeah, 100%, man, because then when I come off that, you start swearing, you get like the cold, you know what I mean, cold treatment or cold shock or whatever you call from it, and that reverted to drinking and, like you said, numbing the brain, numbing the pain. Now, I've been to 5 different rehabs, and they don't work. Like, they might work for some, but again, they don't hone in on what's actually going on in the problem.
The core
problem, 100%.
Okay, I'm going to jump in. What do you believe the core problem is?
Yeah, so the core problem in my belief would be like any trauma that you sort of experienced along the way, and the way that you might look at things at that present time, or the way that you can sort of reflect upon life events, and the way that you act accordingly in terms of how you feel. So the core event could be, you know what I mean, for example, you know what I mean, you might see a traumatic experience, or I seen this one girl, we're doing a VCP, a vehicle checkpoint, and they come down, we're sitting there in Afghanistan, and we're sitting there doing a vehicle checkpoint, so you've got all these signs like barricades and, you know what I mean, like a stop or shoot old sign and bits and pieces like that. They've come along, they've got bad brakes, they've got no mechanics anyway. But this car's pretty much drove straight back into the back of a flatbed truck, and it's gone through the window, sliced him, and just cut like friggin', there was goo and everything from a brain and all that, all good stuff, you know what I mean? So, see that, we're just axed it, she's just gone, you know what I mean? So things like that, you know what I mean? So you might look at it and just go, wow, like, you know what I mean? Like, that might sit in your head, and you're just going, how do you even fathom that?
No wonder you can't fucking sleep.
And then,
Jesus.
you know, shit like that, and like, you know what I mean? You might see like dead kids, or you might see like someone else get hit by something, or bits and pieces, bro, like throughout life. And I'm talking about even here, like in Australia. I mean, I picked up a junkie dude, he got hit by a car and smashes like clout and claret and everything else coming his ears and his nose. He ended up dying down here on the road.
Not in Warrawong by any chance?
Just down here, just down off Lake Illawarra Road there. And I seen him on his pushy, and he just got axed by this 4-wheel drive and just went flying over. So I've pulled my car up into the curb, ran up and scooped him under my arms, and he's like, I just want to party. And I was like, that's all right, mate. Like,
God.
You'll be right, bro. You can party wherever you go, man. You're sweet. You know, so little things like this, so they might not trigger you as such, and you've had that exposure to it, you know what I mean? But at the same time, in order to grow and to get better from them, you need to understand life itself, and, you know what I mean, it's a natural cause, and these things can happen, they're going to happen, and the more you try and show yourself and hide yourself from shock without having any sort of treatment or just thinking about it, but in order to, you know, I don't know, say, get to the other end of the pool, you got to swim. So it doesn't matter what you're going to do, bro. Just get in there and swim. Some people might contemplate swimming. Some people might just sit there and go, I'm not doing it. Some people might refuse to. At the end of the day,
there's no shortcuts.
Just prolonging it. Just get in there and start swimming and just take it as it is.
Fuck yeah,
but
dude.
be around positive people. And if I could say anything, just don't be under the influence of shit. And I have been, you know what I mean? And it doesn't make things better. At the time, you might go, oh, drink it, take some more medication, take some drugs and numb the brain to numb the pain. And, you know, you're still going to have to face it.
Yes.
You might face it on the other end of it when you're like,
I'm actually just blown away that you're saying this because, again, I was talking to a psychologist of 20 years, you know, an amazing psychologist, like where to the point where his practice is so busy.
Yeah.
But he's so popular because he's very reluctant to prescribe.
Yep.
And he is an advocate for telling people to walk through the pain, lean into the pain to heal. Like, there's no fucking shortcuts.
Yeah.
You know, he's real blunt about that.
But when you go to the doctor, Sharon, they don't say to you, mate, have you thought about going to some cold therapy? And again, it's sort of like, you know what I mean? If you are struggling, there's guided meditation, like
but it takes
therapy,
work. People don't
100%.
want to work for their healing.
No, but the thing here, it's guided, and the reason it's guided because that person delivering it has been through it themselves.
Yes.
And that's the beauty of it. They can understand. So you might be sitting there doing something, and again, this is like any sort of course or like, say, training. You might be having these questions in your head, and while you're thinking about these questions, someone else is answering them for you, and you're like, how the hell does he know what's going on? Because he's been there and he understands where you're at and what point. So he's answering the questions for you. But if you want to answer your own questions, go sit in silence and think about, you know what I mean, your issues and think about what's going on and come up with some resolve. And if you're unable to do that, then obviously seek some help, you know what I mean? And there are places out there that are going to help you.
Yeah.
But you need to help yourself too, bro, you know what I mean?
That's
so
exactly
if you're
right.
in a hole and I throw you some rope and I help you out, guess what? You probably jump back in there because you know I'm going to help you. But if you had to climb out, you're going to go, you know what? That was hard work. I ain't doing that again. You know, so you got to really dig deep sometimes to get into it.
I love that. You know, do you mind if we talk about your deployment to Afghanistan?
Yeah, that's all right, man.
You
No
sure?
stress. Yeah, sweet. Like I was 20.
Can you tell us?
Time,
Yeah,
so I think it was on my
down?
third trip at that time. Like
third trip.
Yeah, third trip.
So
between
Timor,
Timor, Afghan, and then this was 20. I was 20 at this time on my third trip, and sorry, mate, the dogs.
No, that's fine.
And anyway, I remember we get ambushed a couple of weeks before my 21st, and that was sort of.
So wait, you're in Afghanistan for your 21st?
Yeah, so I spent my 21st.
So you got deployed. Well, yeah. I mean, I want to go through it step by step a little bit, if you don't mind.
You're right, bro.
Like, I mean, how were your feelings when you found out you were deployed?
Oh, gangster,
what
man.
emotions? Were you stoked?
Yeah, because I was like, this experience, financial, everything else, but. You know, I mean, I already achieved so much in my career between all my parachute courses and, like, I went and did a Pashtun language course in Melbourne and learned some Arabic for a couple of months, and I got attached to Pioneer Platoon and been in reconnaissance. I was the lead scout for the platoon plus a linguist, and I was enjoying it. So, yeah, but we were doing, like, 19-hour days over there, and, like, they're big days. You get pickets of a night time, so you get about 5 hours sleep a night, but it's not 5 hours straight, so you might do 2 and then be picket a couple of hours. And
For how long?
it's about...
Like
8
weeks
months
on
or
end.
something, yeah.
So weeks on end of just no sleep.
Yeah, this was 11 weeks, and you'd be doing like this one stint was about 11 weeks. You'd be digging shell scrapes, and that's pretty much just
What's that mean?
little grave for you to sleep in. So if there's any like explosions, obviously explosions blow up and that sort of thing. So you just lay beneath the ground surface. So you might build like a bunker up with sandbags full of dirt and sand and whatnot. Otherwise, you might dig into the ground and just sleep in that over night time.
So what was your main purpose of being there? Like, what do they call it, a platoon?
Yeah, so you're in platoons, and then
what
you're in
was their
companies,
main objective?
You're pretty much just preservation, pretty much. So
preservation of,
I'd say,
the local people?
just sort of look at all to build hearts and minds, and you know what I mean, to stop obviously the corruption. And
so you were trying to prevent the Taliban from invading local
so pretty much
townships?
in order to build some like infrastructure within the town, and you know what I mean,
so give them space to do that without getting attacked.
Yeah, so you might go out to like one place we're in Baluchi Valley. We were out there. I think we got rocketed about 20-something times in the week. So you'd be sitting there, and they'd go up the mountain. They'd set them up on a washer machine. They'd have a washing machine timer, and they'd set them up some leads, and they'd put on a big battery, and they'd have these big 202s, and they'd face them down into the valley, and all of a sudden they'd go off, but then you'd call in fast air and everything else. These guys would be gone. They'd set them on a 90-minute time, and they'd be going off from all different angles, and you'd hear them coming, go, boom, and like...
So that's how you were living your life, in the back of your mind, wondering if one of those fucking things was going to land near you.
Yeah, well, I come with the Bushmaster one day.
So
and,
you're living like that, though.
And one of these explosions went off, and it was like so close. There was a shrapnel everywhere, and it went through the trunks on the vehicle, and I was like, whoa. And me second at the time, I was like, get down. But I was sort of smiling in my head thinking, fuck, this is choice. Because, like, I was liking it.
But every day.
Getting me through, yeah.
Have you heard of fight or flight?
Yeah, 100%.
So you're really living in a state of fight or flight, which is like that high adrenaline, state.
Yeah.
For long periods of time.
Yeah, hard. So it becomes mentally mentally draining, And this one morning that we got ambushed, I think we stepped off at about 4 a.m. and we're headed to a place called Kandahar. And this road was sort of notorious for people getting ambushed and bits and pieces. Anyway, we were the last vehicle. And everyone at the front was like, "Oh, we'll probably get whacked." And I was thinking, we'll probably get whacked because there's nowhere for anyone to turn around. So if they were smart enough, they'd hit the last vehicles just to keep us closed in. And a good friend of mine, Tinks, we were getting over each other because we were like, man, all we do is like we just talk to the same person every day. You see the same person. And he goes to me, we had a deal. We were like, hey, we ain't going to talk to each other for a month. You know what I mean? We were like, let's just go 1 month not talking. And if you talk, like, you lose the deal. We had this deal of what we're going to come up with. Anyway, we stepped off at about 4:30 in the morning. We're cruising down. Anyway, we did a bit of a test fire, and then we come up over the hill, and then I heard a bit more shooting. I was like, sweet, like, maybe dudes are test firing. All of a sudden, my vehicle's getting fucking sprayed up and whole sirens, all the rounds getting chopped up. I was like, what the fuck? But at the time, I had Akadaka, and I was listening to I shoot from the hip, stiff upper lip, I shoot from the hip.
Headphones,
headphones in because you're in there standing as a shooter.
So wait up, you're in a vehicle that's just been sprayed with bullets.
Yeah, so in the back and just cruising down. It's like
they're not bulletproof vehicles?
Nah, they are semi-bulletproof, maybe the 7.62, but like they'll.
So you hear the sounds like you can hear the metal getting punctured,
and then just all around getting dirt chopped up. But now it's on a fixed line ambush, so pretty much that's just stuck on like it's fixed line where it's going to go. And we're pretty much to the extreme point of the projectile. So pretty much every round sort of chopping was not quite head high. It was bashing all around the vehicle and everything else. And I had these 3 RPGs go above my head. So 2 from the west and 1 from the east. And they smashed like bang, bang, bang. And I was like, I remember hearing the echo and sound. Because I had these earphones in to try and keep awake. Now, most people didn't want to be a shooter in the back of the vehicle because they're just lazy. They just wanted to sit there. And there's dudes in the vehicle screaming. They must have been about my age at the time, about 30 odd. I'm 35 now. But I was only 20 at the time, and they're crying, I don't want to die. I'm like, shut the fuck up. Like, I was excited because I was thinking, this is choice. This is what we're here for, you know what I mean? You see a lot of people, their eyes change in the way they carry on because
pure fear.
They all say, pure fear. And I can't understand it now. Like, a lot of them are fathers and probably thinking, but you know what? We're here in this situation, bro. You just got to make the most of it. Now, my buddy that I was talking about, Tinks, he was in the vehicle in front of us. He thought I got taken out, so he was listening to Aerosmith. I don't want to miss a thing. So this is what he was listening to at the time. But our vehicle stopped. Now, the reason we got hit because the driver, I think the driver of the other vehicle, he got shot on the next trip. He died on the next trip. And there was a flag, and it was, we had the normal A&F flag, and then he had a boxing kangaroo flag on ours. So we stood out. They're always going for different markings. But the flags at the end, they had bullet holes and everything through the flags and everything else. But Tinks come up to me when we got to where we were going. He came and give me a hug. He goes, "You all right, man?" I said, "You fucking lost." Yeah, it's pretty funny, eh? And then all of a sudden...
Wait up. Fuck, I've got a ton of questions. So, listen. So you're driving along, you're getting shot up, you're fucking stressing. Did you just try and gas it out of there? Or
I wasn't driving, bro, so I had no control.
Did he gas it?
Nah, he stopped, bro.
So then you sat there like a sitting duck.
Yeah, hard.
Were you shooting back?
Yeah, so we're just smashing in.
So
with the 58. So I had a 58 mounted on the back. So it was 2 58s.
Okay.
Mag 58.
So you were on one of them retaliating?
Yeah, but you can't see because they're on a fixed line and it's quite
What does that mean again?
So it's quite mountainous. So the fixed line pretty much means their weapons are facing in the direction of travel in which they want to suppress that sort of...
So if you move off that line...
Yeah, so if you move off that line, you're pretty safe. And when I say fixed line, though, it's like they'll hone it in on us. So they'll suppress the area and saturate as much as they could. And again, they still need to maintain their safety while they're doing so. So you can sort of see where it's come from and you chop it into the mountains. But I remember seeing this person come with the RPG from one of the buildings, from one of the little koalas, like the little mud huts. But I'll still never forget the sound. So when these RPGs exploded, they were above my head. They were that fucking loud, like a blast of my ears. And but it made me excited, you know. And I was like, yes, finally, because you start to get complacent, you know what I mean? Because something might not happen for a week or two, and you're like, this is boring. So you start going, well, what's going on?
So then you start to crave a bit of action.
Yeah, 100%. And it makes, your days sort of go quick. Because like you said, you're living in that flight the whole time, whether you're walking along and you're remaining vigilant or what it may be, you know what I mean? So
and it was just like that the whole time you were there?
Yeah,
how long
pretty
were you
much.
There for?
It was about eight months or so. So that one trip itself, like a lot of that trip, you're out. You know what I mean? So you're out in the
In a
bush.
war zone.
Yeah, in a war zone. So, and it's funny. It's not funny, but we got this thing called an ICB. It's called an Infantry Combat Badge, and you got to do at least 90 days in country to get this badge. And then the rest of the army, they wanted recognition, so they get this ACB, an Army Combat Badge, and they'd have to do 1 day out of the wire. So you're outside the wire and you're doing this hard, arduous taskings and, you know what I mean, all this other good stuff. So they'll sort of get flied out to a compound wherever you are, and you have a FOB, which is your forward operating base, and you'll use that as your main base to patrol in and out of. And maybe you'd be doing these massive llamas every day, the big mountains and that sort of thing. But most of these people will come out just to get their badge, and they'll go back and stick their lattes and be on the phone and kicking around. And I remember having a cracked helmet, and I was like, I need to get another helmet, but they didn't have helmets to replace it. And I'm like, well, can't I replace it with someone back at the base that doesn't go outside the wire? You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
You know, we needed more pistols, I guess, but a lot of them...
Why'd you need a new helmet? Did you get shot?
No, it was just broken. It was just like back then there was not really much in terms of like the equipment wasn't, I wouldn't say the best. So again, like it was quite an eye-opening trip.
How often were you in, like, I don't know the terminology, but how long were you actually in, like, combat? Is that the word? Where you were, was it often, or was it just more kind of dodging? Like a lot of it, like, it's not, you know what I mean, it's not face-to-face value. Like a lot of it is long distance, right?
Indirect, yeah. So a lot of it will be indirect, and again, you know what I mean? Like, you look at their choice of weapons compared to what we have, so...
Did you see much death, though?
Nah, not really. I remember there was a Bedouin train come through, and like a Bedouin train's like where they got like camels and donkeys and all that bullshit along with it, and the strap. I remember there was this like little kid, must have been about 2-year-old baby, was dead. I mean, just strapped to the side of the camel, and then that night they were digging it in down the road.
Oh, to bury it.
To bury it. So with their death, like if you die, they'll just take a bit of your clothing that you have on you at the time, and there'll be a tree. They'll put a bit of clothing on the tree, and
that's the tribute.
And that's the tribute. You know what I mean? Because if someone whacks them or something, you know what I mean, and they're stripped naked or they're found naked, they don't get a proper burial, and they don't get their virgins and bits and pieces. So there's a lot of you know what I mean, people out there that sort of like will, you know what I mean, just have like a natural death. But it's funny, you know, they've got these aqueducts and they're like little crossings, like little rivers, and that's where they'll sort of come up and they'll do their wee and they'll do their business, and they've got a rock and they'll wipe themselves down and they'll wash the rock and they'll leave it back there, and for the next person they'll sit there in front of you and throw dirt on themselves after they do their wee and squat down and look at you, and it's just like, you know, but there are some beautiful people there too, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's different cultures, and it's the same as here, you know what I mean?
But
like,
you really were living in a heightened state. You got to admit that.
Yeah.
So let's draw a comparison between living in that environment and then coming back to normality in wherever you were living at the time. Were you back in Wollongong?
So it's sort of back in Holsworthy. So it's really hard.
How was that transition back to that? Did it feel weird?
And this is the thing, man. Like, so a lot of it, there is no sort of transition, and this is where a lot of young guys and myself inclusive, you know, I mean, have stuffed up, because you'll sort of come back, whether you're on a field exercise out bush for a couple of months or you're on a deployment, you'll come back and all of a sudden you're like, okay, off you go. You're like, huh? You feel like a dog locked in a cage, and you're like, off you go. And you're like, where's the direction?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So everyone's like, let's go to the pub. And then all of a sudden people don't really surface or get to the root cause of what's happened, you know what I mean? Because they haven't had time to sort of to let it resonate with them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then that's where people fuck up. You know,
well, because like it's safe to say, so like, you know, in that environment, do you want to lower that a little bit?
That's all right, cheap, bro.
Yeah, I'm gonna lower it. There you go.
Thank you, mate. Cheers.
Yeah, because I guess then, like, let's say you're in that environment, then when you go to the pub and some dude just starts talking shit, that's not even that probably wouldn't even be a blip on your radar of fear. Just like it wouldn't be something that would even sort of intimidate you for a second, would it?
Yeah, but that's where people...
Is that what was sort of happening? Because
not really, because I'm not really, and that's where people get the wrong you know what I mean, the wrong perception, I guess, because a lot of people think they've had these experiences, and this is where it fucks with their ego, because they think, I'm hectic, or I've experienced this. It's like, mate, like, look at your lifestyle. You don't train. You're not equipped to look after yourself. A lot of people might think,
gotcha,
I'm in the military, I'm doing this, I've done that. It's like, yeah, whoop-de-doo, mate. You by your fucking self. Like, chill out, bro. Like, who's going to protect you? So a lot of false perception in terms of, you know, who's going to look after you. And again, this happens a lot in, I guess, in the private security world. People there got to understand that, you know what I mean, and they're quite aware of, if you're away or you're overseas or whatnot, it's only you, or you and your buddy. You don't have all these accessories, you know what I mean? In the military, you have backup, you have, like, you know what I mean, it's sort of everlasting ammunition, you have, like, lots of sort of funding and resources there, you know what I mean? But in other elements, in normal life and other jobs, you don't, you know what I mean? So you really got to think to yourself sometimes, if you do go out or you're not feeling well, should I really be going there tonight? Should I really be doing this? Like, a lot of time, you're putting yourself in harm's way. But one thing I will mention, and I'm quite bad for it myself. I don't really care where I go or what I do. Like, I don't fear nothing. I don't mean to be ego about it. Like, I'm confident with my ability, but at the same time, I always try to see the best in people. So, like, if someone said that's a bad pub, I'll go there. I couldn't give a rat's ass. That's kind of bad too sometimes, because it's like, but would I take my children? Not a chance.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I'm sort of putting myself in harm's way because that self-worth has not been there in the past, you know what I mean? And when you start to lose a bit of self-worth and you don't feel good within yourself, you start to become vulnerable, you know what I mean? Because you might cross the road out looking, and you might go just for a swim somewhere later at night. You couldn't really care, you know what I mean?
Thanks for sharing that, man.
Cheers, bro.
It's a perspective that a lot of people wouldn't
So
understand.
DVA, Defence Veteran Affairs, they cause a lot of damage and suicide to veterans when they leave and that sort of thing. And one thing just because they know the process is just so crap. It's just, there's nothing there to help soldiers. And you might reach out to them and they just make it tenfold, like, for whatever it is. It's so, there's so many stories out there. And I rang them one day and I was like, look, I'm suicidal. And they're like, well, what would you do? And I said, I'll probably just go for a swim. And they said, well, that's a good idea. I said, yeah, but I might get drunk first and then go for a swim. Oh, well, we don't really recommend that. It's like, a lot of times they're not there to help you. It's like they don't really care. And even listening, they're not great listeners. But you might just say, hey, look, I need to get this completed, or I might need that done now. They ain't going to help.
What do you think veterans need then?
Well, they just need some sort of structure to their life. So myself, for example, when I left,
integration programs or something?
100%.
Okay.
This could be a thing. You could call it Bridge the Gap and get out there and bridge the gap for soldiers. Now, for a young man like myself, you've been told where to eat, sleep, shit, do whatever all your life. You join the military. Again, do 15 and odd years, a bit over. So for 35 years of or 32 years of my life, I've been told where to eat, sleep, shit, do whatever.
Yeah.
I leave and go, okay, what do I do now? So I had no transition because the unit I was in was busy at the time.
Yeah.
Had all these injuries and everything else. So I leave the military and I'm like, well, what do I do now? Here's some money and here's everything else. You're like, I don't have a parade to go, like a first parade to go to. I don't have to be in. I don't have to adhere to anything. So there's no structure in terms of saying, hey, and being left when you leave, mental and physically, because of all the surgeries and everything else that I endured in my time of service. You should have, I believe, some sort of structure. And that's like, hey, mate, you're leaving, but when you leave for the first year, they give you a case manager, but that's just crap, you know what I mean? Because they say you should still go have everything lined up for you before you go. And now I think if the longer you've sort of done in, 4 years is cool. Like, that's really good. And credit to everyone that wants to go there and have a crack. You can sort of bounce back from that without sort of being too institutionalised. But the longer you spend in, I believe, maybe towards that last few months of your tenure or your career as such, just on the Friday, like Navy do half-day Fridays anyway, but maybe every Friday or every second Friday, just give them the day off, but not a day off to engage within the civilian population and other jobs out there. So you might have a profession you might be interested in, something that could work around you physically and mentally, and go out there and go, hey.
Go and do some interning, like an intern.
100%. Go with a builder for a day, go with a Sparky for a day, and go out there and sort of do some engagement, like, you know what I mean? Go, actually, I didn't mind that, you know what I mean? And you can sort of slowly relate to civilization.
So you just could feel like a lost puppy, back in society, just like, just a bit lost with the new routine. And I guess, too, a lot of veterans probably maybe have a little bit of money as well, so they're not like deadbeats.
Yeah, but this is the thing that they don't explain it very well. Like,
as well.
I mean? That was dangerous for me. They go, you got all these, like I said, 14 surgeries and then PTSD, alcohol use disorder, gambling addiction. You give me 2 from DVA, gambling addiction, alcohol use disorder.
Yeah.
You give me money. You're a pisshead. Here's a case of piss. What are you going to do? Well, you'll drink it before you think about it, right? You know what I mean? And then you go, oh, shit. And now thinking about it after you're pissed, you're tenfold, like, the effects of what's actually happened.
Gnarly. No wonder there's such a high suicide.
You go have surgery. You go do physio.
Keep going.
You go do surgery, you go do physio, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Keep going.
Cheers, bro. Yeah, you go do physio, you do surgery, and you get back on track, and there's your rehabilitation in terms of physical element, you know what I mean? So there's sort of some sort of structure with your doctor's appointment specialist and your physio and your recovery and whatnot. When it comes to mental, there's nothing out there, you know what I mean? Like, you go speak to the psych, and it's like, great, thanks for listening. But then at the end of the session, okay, so you want to book in again? So you can go see the doctor and get more sessions? Like, they're not. Yeah. Half the time they just look at you up and down because you're covered in tattoos, or saying, you're too full on, or this and that. And it's like, okay, well, stats show this and stats show that.
You're too full on?
Yeah, so 100%. Like, I've had, like, I think I said this before.
But then again, that's the same thing that kept you alive.
100%.
That's the fucking irony.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you have to be
So you need to have a clinical psychologist, or
Yeah.
and there's a beautiful lady, her name's Monique from Open Arms, and this is pretty much where it sort of got me back into the recovery and help that I needed, and the stigma behind 1-800 have a cry, we call it in the army. So everyone's like, stay clear of it. Now it's pretty much rock bottom. So I rang this Open Arms and I went in and seen this lady called Monique, and I went and I was huffing and puffing. I was like, I don't feel good about myself. And she's like, just relax, breathe. I'm going, anyway, she put me on track and the path in where I needed to go. And like I said, with this Rusty fella that does the surf program for veterans and everything else, but beautiful, sweet lady, and sort of just got me to sit down and relax, and sort of really harped on getting me help and put me in the right direction and getting the right people for you. So I reached out to this Sydney Detox and Rehab. So if anyone finds this online, do not go there. It's a fake website. I've jumped on there.
Cool.
He's got me to go to the doctors, the physios, the psychs, get all these reports, send everything through, and even got the doctor to write me. Even got this doctor to write me prescriptions. Now you look online, it's $20,000 a week, and it's meant to be a drug-free clinic, and that's what I was after. I didn't want to be there on the what do you call it?
So
the diazepam.
they're promoting themselves as a rehab.
Yeah, so it's called Sydney Detox and Rehab. It's the first one you'll search. So when I was rock bottom, I jumped on there, looked for it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And this guy called Greg, he's given me everything else. I looked on their website. I searched the ABN. It wasn't right. And I was like, something's not right here. A couple of other things. He's trying to get onto my doctor for a few days. I'm like, nah, something's not right here either. What's going on?
Yeah.
Anyway, I ended up getting to the crunch of it. He sent me someone else's documents, but I looked at it and had the guy worked for Jim's Mole Service. His address was in Bateman's Bay. The doctor he had was in Melbourne, and then his psych was in Adelaide. I was like, that's a bit weird. Like, they're all over the joint, but makes sense if he was in the military and he had like his own private ones or whatnot. And anyway, ended up it's been dodgy. So I shot him a message. I was like, yeah, it's a fucking scam, rah.
Yeah.
Anyone else in the medical practice would be like, oh, we don't tolerate that or condone that type of behaviour, and would have cut you. But he was still adamant. He goes, look, we'll do it for half price for you then, because it's 20. We'll do it for 10. I was like, mate, I don't give a rat's ass. I ain't paying for it. You know what I mean? And I was like, you know what? I said, you know what the shit thing for you is, Greg? I said, I'm not a loser. I ain't going to lose. I said, like, but if I was vulnerable, which I am, ringing you right now is going to, like, you know what I mean? That could be the end of my life. I'm using it as the last hope. So
there's scammers out there.
There is, mate.
Preying on the weak.
100%. And,
Fuck.
you know, and since then I've used that energy and that hatred towards fixing and bettering myself by going back to Joe's and getting myself back in and having solid mates like my brother and my best mate Phil and other people.
Physical
like that.
training.
Yeah, but just physical and sort of the cold therapy and sort of harnessing in.
Isn't the cold therapy amazing?
Man, it's hectic.
Dude, my favourite thing is hot and cold. So sauna, ice bath. You ever done that?
Yeah.
But it's actually hard to find in Australia, because I lived in Bali for a couple of years, and they were really, there's a lot of places where you could do that, like have a sauna for 15, rinse off, jump in an ice plunge for as long as you can, back to the sauna. You do that 3 times, mate, and there's fucking the best mental health strategy you can imagine. I don't know
well, it's
why.
also good for resetting the body. If you do a heavy training session, you're about to go. You know, people jump in a warm shower and they're still sweating when they leave. You jump in the hot for a minute, cold for a minute, and do that a couple of times, repeat it.
It detoxes the cells, doesn't
100%,
it? Like, it gets all the toxins out of your cells or some shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
And even the same as going lie up in a cold river or somewhere, you know what I mean? You get natural therapy from it.
Yeah.
Where salt come from? It's the ground. It's ground salt. That's why it's called ground salt. You know what I mean? Like there's bits and pieces, but yeah, like as you can imagine, like with the military career, like, you know, I had this parachute accident. I wouldn't say an accident. It was quite funny, and we had this guy called anyway, this guy, he's a lead. I don't have to say, I won't say no names, but a choice, a type of bloke that, you know what I mean, pretty much the Terminator of defence. You look at him and go, man, look, this bloke, when he speaks, like, you know what I mean, speaks with power, like it's you know what I mean, and for a young, impressionable guy, you go, wow, look, if there's any sort of fear and everything else, like, you'll sort of, you know what I mean, you'll put that to the side because you like this. Now, sort of getting a little bit off track, we're born with the 2 fears, you know what I mean, the fear of falling and the fear of noise, and that's what sort of saves us, falling off big cliffs and jumping out in front of cars and trains and whatnot. So these are fears that you need to overcome. But when you jump out of a plane, there's fear of the noise, there's the fear of jumping, there's a lot of things. So your first jump, in order to come over sensory overload and bits and pieces, you have 2 instructors and they'll be hanging on to you. Now, this guy says to us this one day, he goes, if there's 3 things in life we can guarantee you, and this is before your first jump, it's death, taxes, and you'll not be alone in your stage 1 jump. The instructors here we have at the school are second to none, blah, blah, blah. And you look at this guy and, you know what I mean, it's out of his control. He can't control what everyone else is doing or thinking.
Yeah.
Now, they're hanging on to me and they've gone to, like, something's happened, a bit of a stumble, and gone to pull me out the back of the plane and let go of me. So I've fallen out and I'm on my back for about 6,000 feet.
Yeah,
you know?
so 2 instructors were going to jump with you and guide you through the free fall. correct? So they
to
hold you on
deployment.
your side to keep you stable, help you work it out.
Yeah, hard. So it's to overcome
And so what,
sensory
as you
overload.
went to jump, because can I say
Yeah, bro,
that I did see the
100%.
video. You showed me the video.
Yeah.
And from what I watched, it was amazing because the first guy who was meant to sort of lead you, he went to grab a fucking handle right on the edge of the plane and he's missed it, fallen off balance, and then literally just fallen out of the plane. Like it was
pulled me at the same
clumsy
time,
as
like.
hell. And then you just went, and then the other guy had to go, and then you were by yourself. But you were falling half on your back. You were falling backwards.
So he's pulled me out
and that was
backwards.
the first time.
So you set up with backwards, facing rearward. So you're meant to, when they jump, obviously they flatten you out, you know. But at the same time, they're both meant to be hanging on the same side, and they act as like that you know what I mean, that platform to keep your stability and to overcome sensory overload and everything else, you know. So all of a sudden this has happened, and you know what I mean. So you don't get to go through your practice pools and everything else, and I've landed downwind, so normally when you get to the ground on your first couple of jumps, you'll get someone there with little table tennis bats or whatever those little ones are, and they'll be guiding you, telling you which toggle to pull down, and you're meant to go into the wind to slow, you know what I mean, the direction of travel of your parachute and everything else. But I had to go with the wind, and I was miles away from the target, and I smashed myself into these bushes, and you know, there's a lot of funny stories out there, and a lot of things happen. You know, what I mean, a lot of misses where people are pulling in the clouds, and you'll see their pilot should come flying past. You're like, you know. And
my God, were you terrified?
Well, I had another jump in the same thing. It was with the Mach 5 MC5, and I've come down and like my repeater link was snapped open and a couple of the lines were out. And I was like, that's weird. And they've looked at the other one. The other one was rusty and stuffed, you know what I mean? So again, like physical checks from the riggers and could be complacency and everything else wasn't there. But I was in Perth and we're doing this HAPO course, a high altitude parachute course, and you do HAHO and halo jumps and that sort of thing. And we're going down to do night jumps this one night, and it was the last one to get qualified for your HAPO course. Now, there's a little place called Hillman Farm, a little dirt runway, and that little plane, you jump from about 28,000 feet. Now, they lent us this vehicle and said, this old fella told me to take the back road. It was 110 k's an hour on the back road. There was no slowdown signs. I've come up over the hill. It was pretty much like a T intersection, but I was still doing about 110. And I was like seeing the sun up over the tree line. I was like, what the hell? I've gone to hit the brakes, but the brakes didn't work. They bounced to the floor, flew across the road, smashed into these trees, knocked everyone out, including myself. And the airbags didn't work. And then I sort of come to, and I was like, fuck, I feel like I just been hit by my brother or something. And I dragged the boys out of the car, and then I ran up to the bit of high ground where we were, because we'd gone off the ledge and everything else. And I rang the ambos, and they've come along and they've said, these fellas, like, did you hurt yourself? And they're like, yeah. So they've both like got taken to hospital, and they said, did you hurt yourself? I said, nah, because I still wanted to finish my course. Now, looking back, they should have said, mate, you're going to get checked anyway. And that night we jumped from minus 28,000, almost for 28,000 feet, so about minus 38 degrees. It's freezing, you know what I mean? And we sort of hit some cloud cover at about 6,000. I remember sort of like feeling real lightheaded, and you know what I mean? And then there's winds at different angles, at different heights and that sort of thing, and your parachute can only do so much. Anyway, I landed downwind. I landed in this farmer's paddock, and I remember flaring, thinking the power lines was his fence. So when I flared, like, you know, when your parachute sort of opens up like it's good, it slows you down, but then it sort of refills with air, and I've come down, smashed into this farmer's farm. Like, I had my weapon, had my pack, had my parachute, and all I could hear was, bah! And I was like, fuck me, like it's about 3 o'clock in the morning at this stage, and walking around trying to get the other boys on the radio, and everyone was all in different directions, and it was just a shit day that day, you know what I mean? And so like, cracked me, smashed me back on that drive and everything else, you know what I mean?
Dude, you know, I've had a guest on here, Tyler Farnham. He survived a near fatal skydive incident. Yeah. Again, loads of jumps, just recreational. I think he was he wasn't in the military, but just it was an enthusiast. And parachute didn't open. Cut it, released the second one, but it got tangled.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Went into a spiral, and then because he spun so hard, he passed out. The cylindrical forces made him pass out.
Yeah.
And then hit the ground at full force, broke everything. But fucking helmet saved his life. He was wearing a helmet.
Yeah.
And it's an insane story.
So this is where it's important to speak up. I had this parachute, it was SR10, the number was, and anyway, same thing. I jumped out, locked me up, and started putting me into a spiral. And I was like, what the fuck? And I've come down, and I said, like, to one of the instructors, like, man, Mop, this parachute, you know what I mean? So he went and jumped it next, and he cut it away, mate. Like, he went and cut the parachute away and had to deploy his reserve. But one of the other boys, sort of being a young digger, he goes, I had that parachute too. It did the same to me. And I was like, well, bro, why didn't you say something? You know what I mean? And that's why it's important to speak up, like, regardless. But it's so hard. And again, you know what I mean? A lot of people might speak up within defence and sort of feel like because they didn't go through their immediate hierarchy and so on, you know what I mean? And chain of command as they sort of harp on and, you know, and again, like, you know, I could speak for days, but there's so much corruption there in defence and, you know what I mean? Like,
do you want to go there, though?
Well, you know what, not today, but I 100%, if anyone wants a story out there and wants to hear one, I'm happy to tell it, mate, you know what I mean? Because I'm that bitter and twisted about the whole thing, you know what I mean? Like, especially more so, I'll be looking after my diggers, bro, like, and doing things. You get bosses coming and call them fucking maggots and this and that. And it's like, mate, what the fuck, you know what I mean? I'd have bosses, and you got to say g'day to them. Hey, how you going, sir? Like, they wouldn't say g'day back to you. So I tell my boys, don't say g'day to him. Next thing you're getting in trouble. It's like, hey, it works both ways, you know what I mean? Like, and again, there'll be trips that pop up like, nah, we're too busy at the moment, like. And if you're in a train commander, I understand that at the time. But then you might get bosses down in HQ going on trips. You're like, that's the only OC you got here. You know what I mean? He's going on a trip. And, you know, I had bosses there get me working. I was Hyzacot and Endo and Oxycot, and I'm doing drop zone safety officer duties, calling in clear live. And you're setting up and you're running around. You're going, come on, man. Like,
just to give everyone some clarity of like how many deployments overseas do you think you had in total?
Yeah, so probably about 4 all up. That's between 5
so,
between
and the countries were like Timor,
Afghanistan, and then South Africa.
South Africa.
That was non-military.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it, man.
Okay.
But between like all them trips and then like my 15 years of service and then postings and injuries and everything else, you know what I mean? I'm pretty much where I am now, where I feel like I'm just finally rebuilding myself. You know what I mean, from all those trauma experience and getting to the nutshell. And so again, so for anyone listening out there that may be struggling, that does need that help, that's quite, you know what I mean, not sure and need answers questioned and that sort of thing, you know what I mean, start getting out there and looking into like, you know what I mean, positive and personal development. And by that I mean, you know what I mean, go to a gym, and if you feel like you want to join a gang, fuck that shit off, you know what I mean? Go like to a gym, and that could be a little gang. If you want to feel like you're in part of a brotherhood, like go do jiu-jitsu, do boxing, do anything. Even just go join a club, like a social club, and do some footy or whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be high-end, but just to be around other people positive that are going to keep you on that same track. I find that powerful, you know what I mean? Because you are what you eat and you are who you hang with.
Bro.
You know what I mean? So, again, like, it's something that you can take away, especially if you want to do better for yourself. You know what I mean? Like, it's definitely, and like that sort of brings me to my next point, I guess. Like, for me, and I know like being a father and having animals and as well and bits and pieces, like I find there's like 3 pillars. You know what I mean? And that's to train, like physically and mentally, emotionally, train yourself, and to educate yourself. You know what I mean? And educate yourself on everything sort of around you and the best way, you know what I mean, for success. But in order to do both of them, you must have discipline. You know, discipline there is the key to maintain that discipline and still wake up every day and be, you know what I mean, not religious to yourself, but religious to yourself in terms of your approach and how you're going to, you know, deliver that content to yourself, and in order that you'll grow, you know what I mean? You'll be able to help others, and you'll still start to find that, hey, like I'm actually making like a difference here. Yeah. You'll feel better within yourself, and that self-worth, you know what I mean, will be there. And it's not easy. It is hard. It's a hard process, but again, you chip away at it, you know what I mean? If you're going to go for a big drive, you don't think about driving that whole way. You just think, I'll just get here first and I'll fill up and I'll have a break and I'll have something to eat. And all of a sudden you look back and go, oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought, you know what I mean? But just break your day up. Just worry about, and you know what I mean, one foot after the other, like in the army or whatever. But at the same time, like, just focus on getting to brekkie. If you're struggling, don't think about all these tasks ahead for the whole day. Just focus on what you're doing. And struggling, just remember to breathe, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just concentrate on breathing. Go, you know what, like, it ain't that bad. And if you want some reflection, just go look at something and how gnarly the world is, and you can go, you know what, it ain't that bad. Like, sort of off topic, but I seen this lady yesterday from Somalia. She was on TV. She had a 4-year-old, 2-year-old, and she was 7 months pregnant. She walked 30 Ks every night for 10 days. No food, but minimal water, just to escape, you know what I mean, everything else that's going on. So that there within itself is powerful. So, you know, and you get people that go, oh, it's so hard being a mother, or it's so hard being a father. And, you know, there's so many people there that are struggling, but again, in their life of stress they haven't encountered too much, you know what I mean? So again, in order to grow and to build that, put yourself in the deep end sometimes, you know what I mean? And grow, like, and it's okay. Just, it doesn't happen forever. Every day gets easier if you're heading in the direction for success, you know what I mean? Like, I find that. And same, if you're going down a downhill spiral and you're going in the same direction, you're going to dig yourself deeper and deeper every day, you know?
Oh, dude.
Yeah, so pretty much, man, that's it, like in a nutshell. Like, thank you for having me, Shannon. Like, it's been great to talk to you, and I do appreciate, bringing this best part of me out and being able to share some of my story. There's lots of other stories there.
Well, I kind of feel like you're the kind of guest I need to have you back on for part 2.
No,
because I think you've just had such an amazing life.
Yeah.
And again, I'm just so drawn to people like you who are just so willing to be raw and talk about their life with a lack of ego, but more for the purpose of, wanting to help others. There's so much power in that.
Yeah, 100%.
But I want to know, like, what's, you're out of not in the military anymore.
No.
You're got a beautiful house. You got some beautiful kids.
Yeah.
What's next for you?
So pretty much, just to grow as a person, to try and understand myself and get out there and sort of engage with the civilian population and try and make a difference and help. I'd love to fight again. I'd love to have another crack and throw myself.
You think you've got it? I mean, you're 35. Oh, yeah, man. You've got
and I'm sort of
time.
not being, again, not cocky, more so confident, but, I'll happily have a crack with anyone.
MMA?
MMA, boxing, bare knuckle, anything. I'm happy to have a crack at anything. And I sort of pride myself again, and it's not because I like the outcome of it. I like the process more than anything. And the process is keeping you clean, keeping you on task, keeping you focused. And that part of the journey is probably the most humbling and rewarding because at the end of the day, when you get to that destination, you're like, yeah, sweet, I'm here, but it's the journey and the experiences you had along the way that make it so much more well worth it when you do get to the end. So I do believe I can have a crack again, and I will have a crack again. And So again, it's got nothing to do with the story, but in deep, when times get tough, I feel like I've got that mental resilience and fortitude to rely upon, and I'm grateful for that.
You mentioned cold therapy has been a big one for you, but how much of heavy physical training has been as part of your story in terms of
everything
management?
that I've sort of always done, anybody I care to run here, run there, catch this, shoot that, eat this, whatever, everything that I've done in my life, and that's probably why I'm so broken now.
Physically broken.
Physically broken, like I said, you have 14 surgeries from just soldiering on pretty much and just
charging.
I had 5 surgeries within a 6-week period, and then in the last couple of years, all these other surgeons just thrown on top, so it's all sort of caught up. So physically, and this is where I struggled because no one ever taught me how to relax. So I was used to going to work, jumping in a plane, shooting, fighting, doing everything else that I do. No one ever just say, mate, here's a book and here's how to read and here's how to relax. So again, physical outlet, which is where I started to go downhill and drink more. Because being fully broken, I'd be going to the gym with my buddy Drew, and we'd be on crutches. I'd be crutching around trying to pump weights and do everything else. And this is where the lack of knowledge within defence at the time sort of was become more apparent, because instead of trying to do your heavy sets and everything else, I should be saying, hey, mate, look, have you thought about just getting in the pool and doing some recovery this way, or trying this, or having a different training methodology as opposed to trying to still maintain and sustain the same sort of motion that you were trying to gain
in your 20s
before you busted, and that's brought me to where I am now, and I've had to change my whole outlook on life and the way that I deliver.
Like training smarter, not harder.
Yeah, pretty much, and consistency. Chris Jaffrey from Baymed, he's a gangster. He's Volco's main strength and conditioning coach, and I've got him at the moment, and he's been choice. And physically, I find him and his team there, and mentally, they help you a lot, bro, because the physical side of it helps you. Obviously, mentally, you can come out feeling replenished, what I mean? You feel good, but when you're so busted, don't stress. It's in the military. It's people struggle about running and they're sore and this and that, and I don't want to run. Well, stiff shit, bro. You have to run. That's the military. Or stiff shit, you got to do this. We've got to do something. But if you want to get fit on the outside, there's other things you can do. Do you like swimming? Do you like riding a bike? Do you like doing other forms of physical activity? You know what I mean? There's other ways that you can attack. Do you know what I mean? That approach to get your outcome for what you feel some sort of desirement from. But, pretty much to answer your question, my bro, I got to just work around my injuries and keep moving. You know what I mean? Others say, every day, just do something, bro.
Again, you're just really resonating everything my last few guests have been saying. Because I said, I've told you I'm really into skateboarding.
Yeah, man, yeah.
I'm 46.
Yeah.
You
look 30, bro. You're young, man. You look
thank
well.
you, brother.
Keep in shape, man.
But the guy I was with yesterday or the day before, he's 47 and he throws himself around like a 20-year-old, and he just really talks about that emphasis on playing smarter, not harder, and listening to your body and working around that, working with your body, not against it. But as younger men, you thrash your body. you want to thrash your body, because you haven't had an injury yet, and you just, and you think
and we're always chasing that validation. You know what I mean? Look, everyone's chasing it.
So that's a good message that you put out there, bro.
Nah, cheers, bro. And again, you know what I mean? Like, don't be perceived by the bullshit that's out there. Like, and again, you know what I mean? So, like, social medias and stuff for the younger generation. Like, I could sit there and shake your hand in front of a couple of new cars and be like, I should have bought a new car again today. And everyone's like, wow, look, how's he doing that? You know what I mean? But just stay in your lane and focus on yourself, and don't worry about what everyone else is around you doing. Those people are bored, bro. People that want to scroll and do shit all the time, bored.
Time
no
killers.
Life, you know what I mean? They don't have a story, so they want someone else's story. And that's cool too, but get out there, live your life, and just remember, prior preparation prevents piss poor performance. So if you get out there and have a crack and set yourself a goal, it doesn't have to be massive, just a little goal. Like, I want to achieve this. You know what I mean? And guess what? You'll achieve it. But we all have desirement to do stuff, and I'm guilty of it, because I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this. Like, and now I'm just finding, just do something. You know what I mean? Just start with doing something. A little bit every day. Just a little bit
consistent.
every day. Consistency is the key, bro. 100%.
Fuck yeah, dude. I'm like, you're pumping me up, hey. Speaking of new cars, man, I don't want to get a new car. I don't want to get a new car. I want to get a fucking new electric. I want to get an electric bike.
Yeah, hard there, gangster,
that electric
bro.
bike's sick. I want to get one, dude.
It rips hard, eh?
Yeah, that's the future, man. Especially when fuel prices are so stupid. Just cruising on electric bike.
It costs you a bit of your energy and time, mate. That's all you got.
Yeah, in nature, you got the wind in your hair.
100%.
Although I'm bald, I don't have any hair, but anyway.
That's right. You ride too fast, mate. That's why.
I blew it all off. Hey, well, listen, bro. I ask all guests to come to the podcast with a cause they want to support or advocate for. It can be anything. It can even be a philosophy to finish up on. What do you got for us?
Yeah, look, man, like the same thing. Like, you know what I mean?
You mentioned a cause that was close to you.
Open arms, soldier on. Like, you mentioned child abuse against children. Like, I'm big on that because, again, if you talk about the seed and everything else, like, and it's stemming from some part, it always starts with, you know what I mean, that early on. And then obviously it blossoms from there, good and or bad. So again, you know what I mean, if you don't if you water or spray, kill that seed early on in the piece, you know what I mean, you'll save a new direction for the younger generation. So it's more so just harnessing in on that and being allowed to help others that are struggling. And again, not through just medication or doing some silly program, like actually getting involved and invest your time to help. Those are fucking probably a cause that would touch me to the heart. It would help would be the abuse against children and help that.
Okay.
And then sort of for the grown-ups, you know what I mean, that soldier on and the mental side of it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll sit down and we'll go through some legitimate organisations where I can direct listeners to, maybe donate or get involved with. I always like to encourage listeners to find ways they can be of service to the world or the community, and that's something I've always wanted to just plant seeds with people, make the world a better place and all that shit.
It's why I have to shout out to my brother Greggy and Dingo, and they are my rocks, bro. Like, I love them to death, so that's my family, and then my little boys, Jack, Reg and Koa. So it's good, man.
Dude, man, it's been such an honour. It's an honour and a privilege, my friend. Mr. Craig Martin, everybody.
Thank you, my bro.
Ew.
Adios, amigos.